Hello, it's a beautiful day here at the Writer's Block where we talk about all the ups, downs, turns, and twists of writing. I am your host, Faith Sherrill, aka FM Sherrill, author of the very dark fantasy novel Th3. Well, let's get straight into it. Today we're going to be talking about the Amazon Breakthrough Novel Award Contest. Now that's a mouthful, so they delightfully abbreviated it for us as the ABNA contest. Now this little beauty only happens once a year, so prep your fingertips, get a big thing of chamomile tea, and saddle up. This is also just for new writers and self-published writers, so technically everybody. And it's a big deal because the top 5 winners get a publishing deal with Amazon. You all know Amazon, right? The place that you go to when you're too lazy to buy anything else? Yeah. They will publish your work and put it everywhere. And on top of that, they'll give the top 5 winners $15,000, and the grand prize winner will get $50,000 and a new car. Just kidding, you don't get a new car, but with $50,000 you can buy yourself something shiny. So here are the key dates. Get a pen, get an iPad, scribble this on your arm, write this down. It starts this Sunday. Now that is February 16th, and it goes through March 2nd. So if you had plans for an extra romantic Valentine's weekend, you'll have to plan the tickle nights for another weekend. Now technically that gives you 2 weeks, but don't believe that gracious deadline, because as soon as they reach 10,000 entries, boom, the contest is closed. Now the second round winners are announced March 18th, and only 2,000 of the 10,000 entries will make it to the second round. That's 8,000 people eliminated based solely on the pitch. Now the grand prize winner is announced July 21st, so the whole contest spans over a grueling 6 months. That gives you more than enough time to buy your nails, adopt a child, whatever it is when you panic and freak out when you have to wait. Now formatting is key to the latter part of the contest, so don't do what I did. I made it through the Hunger Games gauntlet of the second round, only to get mercilessly hacked because my manuscript wasn't formatted correctly. In my defense, it was on a link to a link to a link in the middle of nowhere, and I couldn't find it. So we don't want you to end up in that same pool, so we created for you an actual checklist. Aren't checklists beautiful? A little to-do list that you can check with all of the links and all the things that you need to find at emPOWERme.tv, where they'll have a link to thewritersblock.com. Go through the to-do list. First thing that you have to also do is create an account with CreateSpace. They won't even let you fill your name out on the application without that account. Then follow the checklist, make sure your formatting ducks are all in a row, and then that should give you more than enough time, and by more than enough time I mean a day, an hour, the 16th is upon us, to create a really good pitch. And that brings us to our topic of the day, which is tips and tricks for that pitch. All right, I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, Becca C. Smith, writer of the teen sci-fi series, The Writer Saga.
I never made the second round of the ABNA contest, and I've entered 5 times, because I am under the belief that pitches and writing novels are entirely 2 different skill sets. I seriously doubt that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote the back of his book description for Lord of the Rings. But unfortunately, this contest relies solely on the pitch, and if you don't make the first round, they don't even look at your manuscript.
Right, so if you look at the screen right now, we actually have an image of the ABNA webpage where they have example pitches for you because they know that we're writers and we freak out about these sorts of things. The top example is last year's grand prize winner, Timebound by Risa Walker. As you can see, it has a snappy first line. They weren't panic attacks, which is what you may be experiencing now thinking about writing this pitch. So that's why tip number 1 is make your first sentence grab you, and at the same time, then summarize the entire concept of your novel in a few sentences.
Yes, and tip number 2 is let as many people as you know read this thing. It's better if you have people that have actually read the book, because the main thing is that you may think that you the things that you put in your pitch are super important, and the reader has to know that this is in my story. But usually that's not true. And having someone else that has a fresh perspective, that's read your book and knows what was really important to the book is really, really helpful. Also, think about when you're picking out a book on Amazon. You read that back of the book description. Think about what you would want to read. So take that one thing out of your book that makes it different, unique, and maybe make that your first line.
Right, stay authentic.
Yeah.
So tip or trick number 3 is the first time that you write it, just write. Do what we like to call in the writer's world a throw-up draft. Get it all out. Doesn't matter if it's 500 pages long, just click until you can't click no more, and you have that holy eureka moment where you go, I have arrived, I've done it. And then go for a nice jog in the sunshine, take a bath, do something that will totally put that in its own little box. Then go back to it, take it out, and kill your baby. Mercilessly edit it until you can't edit anymore, until your huge thing is now this tiny box, and then give it to all your friends, families, coworkers, and have them edit it as well.
Yeah.
Concise.
And those are all the tips we have for today. So coming up next is our interview with J. Lincoln Fenn, author of Poe.
So we are joined today under the quill by author J. Lincoln Fenn, winner of her category, Sci-Fi Fantasy Horror, in the ABNA contest last year. Welcome to the Writer's Block.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course. One thing I know our viewers will definitely want to know is, as a finalist, what was your publishing experience like with Amazon?
Well, it was a really great experience overall, and they're a great team to work with. The timeline was very quick, so it's you kind of got a call that you were the finalist, and then to get it published by October really took a lot of work on their part and my part as well. But as a collective team, it was just amazing what we accomplished in a very short period of time. So yeah, they're a great publisher to work with, and I'm so thrilled I was able to do that this year.
That's awesome.
So do you have any advice on any part of the contest and the submission process for our viewers at home who are biting their nails and anxiously awaiting this whole gauntlet?
Yes, yeah. Well, it is a gauntlet, and it's a nail biter throughout the entire process. But what I would recommend people do before they submit is really read the rules carefully. I mean, you got to make sure you have every kind of T crossed and I dotted. And then use the discussion boards. Amazon Breakthrough Novel Award has discussion threads, and there's a whole community of people and writers who have entered more than 1 year sometimes, and they're very supportive and give great advice, and just kind of hold your hand through the whole thing. So I recommend connecting with them definitely.
Great advice. Get that support.
I am one of those people that have entered like 5 times.
Keep
I never make
that
it past
dice.
the first round, darn it.
You know what? You should. I mean, just keep entering, because one of the winners of their category last year was had made it to a semifinalist stage, and the person who won the grand prize didn't make it, I think, through the first cut. So, keep entering.
Keep trying.
Yeah. Luck of the draw. Keep going.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I personally have that I'm dying to know is how much editing does Amazon do to the manuscript that you actually submitted? I mean, is it like crazy amounts, or is it like kind of like as is, or how much do they edit?
Well, and this was a real learning curve. You get the call and you're like, now what? So they assigned me a developmental editor, and that process I got along really well with her, and I didn't have a lot to change in terms of the structure or any of the main plot points, but they do check your continuity, and that's something I hadn't really thought about. So, she'd send me a note, you say it's a lamp here, but it was a flashlight, 10 pages ago. Which is it, or she would ask me questions like, how flammable is wine? Don't you need something with more alcohol content?
Okay.
So it's really like
That's
getting
great.
in depth. Yeah.
Okay.
Like great fact checking. I
Yeah.
wish I had one of those in my
Yeah.
pocket
I
that I
know.
could pull out every time I
I
finished
know.
work.
Okay,
And
that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
My last question for you is, if you had a DeLorean, a time machine, a TARDIS, and you could go back in time, is there anything that you would have done differently if you could do it all over again?
Well, I think, I might have connected a little bit more with trying to build a platform, because the very last stage of the contest is people voting. So I had really gotten my Facebook together, or my Twitter together, or my Goodreads profile. So, and I think that's just good things to do anyway. And no matter how far you get along in the contest, use where you get to propel yourself forward, because, this is how it worked for me. But, I've been through other kind of processes and submitting to agents and publishers and whatnot. So I think just, taking your work and yourself as a writer seriously, and start building that platform, and then advantaging however far you get is the best way to go.
Great advice. Great
Yeah.
advice. So you
Yeah.
introverts out there,
Yeah.
you introverts out there, social network like
I
you've
know.
never social networked before.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
us today
thank
at the
you.
Writer's Block. It was an honor to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. Fun.
All right. We'll
Thanks.
see you soon.
Okay.
Up next is At the Bookstore, where Becca and Natasha Troop, author of the horror series Lake Bridge, will give their reviews on this week's book selection, Divergent by Veronica Roth.
Hi, I'm Natasha Troop, and I'm here with Becca C. Smith at the bookstore, and today we're talking about Divergent by Veronica Roth. Divergent is a book about a dystopian future where people are separated based on their personality traits. Now, Becca and I have both read the book, and we both found it to be a highly engaging book that certainly addresses its market in terms of being very readable and very compelling.
Yeah, it was definitely a fast read. It was always interesting, always very action-packed. It was a little bit like Hunger Games in that way. Yeah.
Keeps you really interested and focused.
Exactly. Now, I personally loved the love story. I was a fan of Twilight. I know, get a lot of crap for that. But I love the sort of where the girl, doesn't think the guy ever would even consider liking her, but of course he loves her.
And I tend to find that to be a sort of tired trope at this point. We've seen that love story. We've seen the teenage girl having that kind of angst. And at this point, I just kind of felt that she could have moved in a different direction and found a better way to convey that love story.
And I totally disagree.
Now, one of the things we did agree upon was the issue of people being sorted. Now, in the book, all of the teenagers have to submit to simulations where they find themselves in a place where they discover what faction they're supposed to join. As a result, they go to a sorting ceremony where they pick a faction. Now, if they're going through these simulations,
Yeah.
why do they need to then pick?
Yeah, it takes the whole reason behind the simulations out. I mean, this is the whole, it's the reason why we compare it to Harry Potter, the Sorting Hat. It'd be like if Harry Potter, put on the hat, it yelled out Gryffindor, and then he said, but I want to go to Slytherin. There's just there's no reason for them.
It's unnecessary drama within the book.
Yeah.
However, again, what we found was that, at least for me, none of the little issues that I had with the book, and there were issues along the way where I found, well, it's a little inconsistent here and there. None of those issues kept me from stopping reading. And I actually continued reading, and I read the entire series within a week. I just crashed through it. It was that engrossing for me.
And I read this first book in a day. I did not continue the series. For me, it wasn't compelling enough to go into the next series, but that was just because I didn't like the way that it ended.
And I think if you're looking for a fast, fun read, Divergent,
Yes.
and certainly you want to try to get to it before the movie comes out, because I'm sure, as with all movie books,
Yes.
you'll be disappointed with it.
Yeah. So that's all we have time for today. So thank you for joining us, and join us again at the bookstore.
Thank you so much for joining us today at the Writer's Block. Keep writing, never give up, never surrender. Whatever you do, pick up that pen, click that keyboard, and we will see you next time.